Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. It's supposed to be really hot today, and it's funny that it's supposed to be really hot, and that is exactly what we're going to talk about, is some weather mixed in with all the other stuff going on. I understand this isn't the sexy, exciting, high-speed stuff, but I think it's definitely important because, number one, most of us are homesteaders. And we're trying to be self-sufficient. We're trying to grow food, raise food, all this kind of stuff. And weather definitely affects that, good and bad. And then weather has been used many times in the past to manipulate populations, direct wars, all that kind of stuff. And so with all the stuff going on, whether it's elections or World War III around the corner, the next big pandemic, collapses in the economy, we're dealing with some strange weather, potentially intense weather. And I've made it clear over the years, I'm not one of these climate change, whatever kind of people. But there's definitely stuff going on, and I think it's a mixture of a normal cycle that we go through as a planet. I think it's also geoengineering, weather manipulation. I think it's a little bit of everything. And so we're dealing with it. So one thing is this big hurricane it's coming through the Caribbean. Just a few days ago in June, it was the largest recorded hurricane in the month of June ever. It's already up to Category 5. Last I saw, wind speeds were in the low 160s. It's possible. It may change a little bit, but it's possible that it's going to strike somewhere between Houston, Texas, and New Orleans is what it's looking like. At least that was the last predictions that I saw. So for any of you that live along the Gulf Coast, or if you have family that live along the Gulf Coast, you need to be aware of that, because this looks like it could be a very, very damaging storm. And, as I say often, preparedness isn't just for the apocalypse. Preparedness is for just everyday life, and a massive Category 5 hurricane is something you should certainly be prepared for. But that's not the only example. That's just one thing that pops up. I mean, here where I live, the month of June, I haven't seen any official numbers, but it was one of the hottest months of June I've ever seen, and I've lived here my whole life. Mid 90s. Throughout a good portion of June, low to mid 90s, which is unusual, that much intense heat. And I know for some of you are like, mid 90s isn't that bad. Well, we also have a lot of humidity. We're not dry like some of those southwestern states. But that's pretty hot for the month of June. And I actually personally spoke to one of the top meteorologists here in the state of Missouri for the National Weather Service a week or so ago. It was a happened thing. It just kind of happened. But he was saying that he's very worried about the Missouri and the Midwest this year, that it looks like we could potentially be seeing some very serious drought conditions, dry conditions. So there's that. And then I saw just this morning that Death Valley over in California, that they're saying that this coming Monday, the way the weather is looking, this is a prediction, so of course it could change, and we're a week out from that. But if everything goes as expected, Death Valley could either meet or break a new all-time record of heat for the whole planet. It could be the hottest temperature ever recorded on the planet. Now, of course, we have to also realize, before anyone starts their heads exploding, we have to also realize that when they say, the hottest temperature ever recorded, well, weather records haven't been around that long. Some parts of the world, they've only been keeping records for 20, 30 years. Some of the longest kept records are 300 or 400 years old. Most of those are like in Europe, especially Russia area. The United States, we're talking 100 years. 100 years of record, roughly 100 years of record keeping. So it's more honest to say it's going to be the hottest day over the last 100 years, most likely. But the point is whether or not we're in this like extreme, never seen before weather patterns, or we're just in another cycle. Because if you go back and you look at especially during the 19 teens through the 1930s, there was some extremely hot temperatures recorded. So, I don't know that we're quite to that point, but we're definitely in a place where the weather is, it's becoming extreme, and it's becoming more and more difficult to produce things. I just talked to someone the other day, maybe it was yesterday, I don't remember, yesterday or day before, about how it's becoming harder to grow food in kind of your normal traditional ways. That we're doing better off with growing food in shade. If it's 20 years ago, maybe certain vegetable varieties, tomato plants, for instance, or beans or cucumbers, did really good in full sun. Well, nowadays they're not. They're not doing good in full sun. They need some shade or shade cloth or something like that. They need a lot of water. A lot more than normal. I think a lot of that has to do with it, and I'm no scientist, so this is just my own theories. I think we're dealing with a lot stronger radiation from the sun, most likely because our protective layer of the earth is becoming thinner. Just the other day, there was a very small solar flare. It was a pretty small one. We ended up having like a G4 a level 4 geomagnetic storm, which is really high. A 5 is the highest. And so what that indicates is that the kind of that magnetic protective layer around the earth is getting thinner, which a lot of people believe is indicative of a potential pole shifting. If you've watched channels like Suspicious Observers, that's exactly what they're talking about. And I don't necessarily disagree with what he's saying. The point is, we're dealing with a lot of stuff right now. I've been telling you that for days. There's a lot of things going on. America's in the midst of a collapse. That's really what it is. We're in the midst of a collapse, which is because of that, we're seeing the wars, we're seeing the elections and the pandemics and the economy and just the social breakdown. That all is indicative of a collapse. But then we also have this weather thing going on. And maybe it's connected, maybe it's orchestrated with it, maybe it's just a coincidence. I mean, you know how I feel about coincidences. But regardless, it's a lot for us to take in, and it's a lot for us to prepare for. And we cannot forget that we also have this weather stuff. And so for those of you that are doing what I tell you to do, what I suggest, not what I tell you to do, I shouldn't say that. What I'm suggesting, the things that we're trying to do here, which is become self-sufficient as much as you possibly can. Weather is going to play a big role in that, positive and negative. And so you have to adjust. If you live in already hot regions, it may be even hotter. It may get to the point, and I hate to say this for some of you that may live down in the hot, arid regions, it may get to a point that some of those regions may not even really be inhabitable because they're too hot, they're too dry. Places like where I live, it's almost subtropic here because of the amount of rain and the lushness and all that. It may become where it's not quite that way, where it's still livable, you can still grow things, but the weather pattern may change. I believe that this has happened over millennia, that, different parts of the planet, sometimes they're lush and green, sometimes they're dry, and we're going through those kind of changes. And for those of you that are, like myself, believers in the book, a lot of times we try to figure out, okay, how does this fit into the Bible? I think it fits in pretty well. When you start to read of end time prophecies of how bad things are going to be, where plants are dying off and animals are dying, maybe it's because of all of the massive weather changes that's bringing about another extinction level event. So when you throw all that onto what we're already dealing with, it's a lot. It really is a lot. But I believe that we can survive. Yeshua said those that endure to the end will be saved. And so that means that we are capable of enduring to the end. And we just got to be smart about it. If you're homesteading, if you're trying to produce your own food as much as possible, you need to have contingencies, just like you do with anything else. Do you have seeds for plants that are capable of growing in hotter and drier regions than where you already live, or maybe colder regions? Do you have things like shade cloth? Do you have backup plans for water? If you're watering your garden based on the well that you have in the ground, well, do you have another alternative source? Do you need to be collecting more rainwater? Do you need to be looking at old style irrigations? There's all kinds of things that we're going to have to start thinking about outside of the box. We've had it too easy. Even with gardening, you just turn your water hose on and you water your garden. Well, maybe that's not going to be available. We've gotten used to the region that we're in, the growing zone that we're in. And so we know exactly what can grow and when to plant and when to harvest. That may all be changing. And so we have to be prepared for that. We have to kind of be thinking outside of the box when it comes to producing food. Same thing with animals. I have people all the time asking me, what type of animal is great for homesteading? We have 10 acres and what's the best kind of animal? Well, here's the thing. It's going to be different with everyone. With most different animals, not all, but there's various different breeds and variants of the animal. Sheep, goats, chickens, rabbits, cattle. And a lot of times you should be picking one, especially for a homestead that you want to be self-sufficient, researching and finding the breed of animal that is best suited for that climate where you're at. So if you're hot and humid, what are the animals that can handle hot and humid temperatures versus maybe cool and moist humid, like Pacific Northwest, that kind of stuff. So an animal that does really good up in the Pacific Northwest may not do so good where I'm at, or there may be something that would do better. And so we have to be thinking about those kind of things. Your house, does it need to be, vented better? Does it need, moisture barriers? Does it need more insulation or, all these kinds of things that we should be thinking about because we're going through some weather changes. I don't know how to explain it any other way. We are seeing weather changes, and they are going to play havoc on us as homesteaders because it's directly affecting everything we do, and we need to be prepared for that, along with many other things that we're preparing for. I know it's a lot, but we've got to be doing it. Getting our houses in order, preparing mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next video.